guys, 10 o'clock. Let's get this started. It's the finale right here, and we have no other of Dr. Edward Fubara being our presenter, so we're excited about that. Yeah, we had a long year with these. This is our 12th session. If you look at your desk right now, you'll see the Q3 pin, and if you did not get a Q3 pin, please reach out to marketing. There was a lot of you guys that are shy one class, including me. I missed it looks like July session, and so I am going to do that real quick and earn my pin. But yeah, so we are excited. This one we're going to learn about time management. I know during the holidays there's a lot of commitments. I know I'm probably on my 6th Christmas party, and I have about 3 or 4 more. So I am trying to learn how to balance work and time management, all this stuff with all these holidays. So no further ado, we'll roll into our why. So our why is to multiply the blessings and opportunities that have been placed into our trust. Hopefully next Tuesday morning meeting, our morning blend, I know Scott is going to cover that, and just let you guys know there's more prizes, out there. So hopefully you guys will memorize our why and move on to the new year with that. So that is our why. So this year, like I said, we covered a lot. Right now, I am starting to get the analytics of it, and it looks like we have a 13% growth. We had over participant-wise, we had over. Let me see if I have this number written down, which I do. We had about 776 participants all of 2023, which is a 13% growth. At the end of the call, I should have figured out everyone who finished all 4 sessions or all 4 themes for the month and got your 4 pins. So that would be great, and I'll make sure we'll include that in our monthly newsletter that will go out next Friday. So thank you for everyone who participate for these. I know these are great. And Dr. Fubara, thank you for putting these together. We have a lot of gratitude towards you and Campbell, so I appreciate everyone who has joined these and put these together, and all the participation people, everyone who participated, and everyone who was our hosts and our guest speakers as well. So no further ado, Dr. Fubara, the floor is yours.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, good morning, Rosewood. It is really a pleasure to be back with you all, and thank you so much. Antonio just thanked us for these presentations, but we are grateful to you all for the partnership, for the support, for the relationships, and for the opportunity to kind of hone our skills as well, and to dig into some new territory academically. So time management is not my expertise by any stretch, but this webinar has given me a chance to do a little research and study and thinking and reflection, and even to clean off my desk. I don't know if you can see it. Well, it's not great, but it's better than it was. So that was actually one of the lessons learned in this from preparing this webinar. So an uncluttered workspace helps you to work better. So Antonio, let's go ahead with the slides. So you may be wondering why there's a picture of a part of a train in front of you. There's a preacher named Mike Murdoch, one of the old school kind of charismatic preacher, and he talks about the idea of 24 golden boxcars. He says every day we get 24 golden boxcars. Of course, that's our 24 hours. And so the metaphor, I think, is very apt, because every day you get these 24 hours, and each one is like a container, so like a boxcar. It's full of something, and we get to decide what we're going to put in that boxcar, and we also decide where the train is going. And so sometimes we get so focused on what's in the car that we forget to focus on where the train's going. So we're actually going to talk about sort of both of those aspects of time management today, how we use our time, and then also where our time is taking us, so to speak, or what we are what's the big picture of what we're doing with our time? Let's go to the next slide, please. This metaphor of the 24 golden boxcars, you get a new set every day. So as I said here on the screen, no matter who you are, you get the same amount of time every day. You've probably heard people say this before, but it's kind of, when you think about it, it's kind of fascinating. What else is there that everybody in the world gets the same amount of, right? I mean, money, they say money talks and everything else walks, but money can't buy you any more time in a day. It can help you to be more efficient with your time. But again, everybody gets 24 golden boxcars, and you can't keep going, Antonio, please. Put them all up, please. Thank you. So you can't really determine, or you can't change the number of boxcars you get. You can change what you put in them, you can change where you're going, but you can't change the number. And you can't store them, you can't save them, you can't store up for the next day. You get a new set every day. So there's a formal definition here of time management, a form of decision making used by individuals to structure, predict, and adapt their time to changing conditions. I don't know if anybody wanted to see that, but as an academic, you probably expected me to say something academic. So there's a formal definition there of time management. The phrase time management is a little bit of an oxymoron, because we cannot literally manage time. As I mentioned a minute ago, you can't save time, you can't change it, you can't adjust it. We talk about budgeting time or wasting time, but literally you cannot control time. You can control what you put into it, but not the time itself. And I asked a question here just for kind of an initial reflection. If you tracked your time for the last 2 weeks, what would it look like? In Antonio's case, lots of holiday parties. So, we'll talk more about that in a minute. Let's keep going for now, and we'll pause in a little bit to do some reflection. So, managing your time is managing your life, right? Time is, the amount of time that we have in the earth is really the duration of our life, right? If you murder somebody, I mean, murder is considered the worst crime on the books, but people were going to die anyway, right? And what you did was take their time. You ended their life early. You deprived them of more time on the earth. And so again, time management is serious because it is managing your life. How you spend your time will influence your productivity, happiness, self-esteem, and self-efficacy. Self-esteem is how you feel about yourself. Self-efficacy is how you feel in terms of your ability to make a difference, the power that you have. And just right off the bat, we probably all can recognize that when we are being productive, when we're using our time well, we feel good about ourselves. When we have, checked the boxes on our to-do list, or when we have been particularly productive in a particular day, we feel good. It's good for the bottom line, but we also feel good. So as I mentioned here, our happiness, our self-esteem, our self-efficacy are improved when we manage our time well. As I said, here's the difference between action and reaction. So managing your time is proactive. It's it involves planning. And if you don't manage your time well, you find yourself reacting to a lot of things. People bringing stuff up to you, deadlines that catch you by surprise, projects that you're running out of time, so you're rushing to finish. So again, time management is the difference between being proactive and reactive. And it's a matter of habits. And I'm sure many of you have read books like Atomic Habits that talk about how we can develop these habits. But again, that your habits will influence how you use your time. And over time, if we develop good habits, we also develop good time management strategies. So I put a little blurb down there. It says scientific studies find enhanced well-being and lower stress improved job performance, and increased academic success. So I read some of the academic literature on time management. There isn't a lot of it out there, and the results are mixed. That's probably why there isn't a lot of it out there, because it's an area of study that has there's lots of people writing about it in the sort of popular press, but not as much academic literature. But there have been, again, academic studies that have shown these links to performance, academic success, and well-being. And I think the well-being link is the strongest one. So again, you feel better when you manage your time well. And training in time management also has been shown to have some positive effects on the trainees. So there is a bottom line, or a demonstrated benefit to managing time well. Let's go on, please. So this comes from Brian Tracy's book. He talks about the psychology of time management. So he says that we should basically, in a sense, he's saying we psych ourselves up to say that we are good time managers. A lot of us will say to ourselves things like, oh, I'm so disorganized, or I'm always late, or, you know, it's nothing like the last minute, or I love to procrastinate. And I won't call anybody out, but there's a woman who lives in my house who's always late. Don't tell her I said that. But some of us say that about ourselves. And so Brian Tracy says we should think of ourselves, you know, so as he says here, describe yourself as organized and effective. Visualize yourself as an effective time manager. So what would it look like? You would probably be on time. Your desk would probably be clean. You would have your projects completed ahead of schedule. So, and then he says, act as if you're an effective time manager. So that may seem a little cheesy, but you know, most of us have probably seen other areas in which it helps to visualize and to, again, it's sort of psych yourself up to think about yourself in different terms. That's one of the ways that we develop habits, is to think about our actions and to picture ourselves in a different place. There are even studies about athletes who, you know, they picture themselves finishing the free throws or scoring the touchdown, and it helps them to perform better. So our mindset, our inner monologue, so to speak, will help us do better in terms of time management. Let's go to the next slide, please. So this, I think, is one of the interesting aspects of time management. I remember back in the 90s, so I'm an old man, so back in the 20th century, I remember when the Franklin Planner came out. If any of you remember the Franklin Planner, but it was kind of a big deal. You know, it was this planning tool that had, you know, these lists and a calendar, and you know, it was a way for people to organize their time and their day and their schedules and their appointments. And it was, you know, it was kind of radical at the time. And of course, this was way before computers and smartphones and all of that. So it was a paper planner, and people would carry these things around, and you would see everyone had one. It was almost like a cult of, you know, I've got a Franklin Planner. Do you have one? But one of the things that Franklin introduced, and then later Franklin and Stephen Covey got together, so you may have heard of the Franklin Covey Company. One of the things they introduced was the idea that time management is not just about being more efficient. It's not just about getting more done, but it's about using your time to get somewhere. So if you think back to my analogy at the beginning, the 24 golden boxcars, it's a train filled with stuff, and you not only want to maximize how much stuff you can get into the boxcars, in most cases you want to maximize that, but you also want to think about where the train is going, because you can do a really good job of getting efficiently to the wrong place. And so one of the things that Franklin did with the Franklin Planner system was to help people think about their values and their goals and their life mission and what their lives are about, and to plan their time based on a focus or a recognition of their values and their goals and their life mission. So I want to take just a minute for you to think about these 4 questions. Maybe scribble some notes to yourself. And if there are people who want to share some of their thoughts, they can. This is kind of personal, so you may be willing to share it, but I'm not going to pressure you to do so. So if somebody asked you, what are you, or who are you, and you were to answer the question, I am, what comes to mind? So at the core of your being, who are you? Or what are you? The second question, my biggest goal for my career is, so what would you like to accomplish with your career? My biggest goal for my family is, right? And of course, you remember, Antonio, show us the next slide for a second. We'll come back to that previous one. I'm sorry, keep going. Go to the next one after this. The one about SMART goals. I thought I had a slide about, there it is. Yeah. So when we talk about goals, sorry, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Of course, we've all heard of the acronym SMART goals. So when I ask you what's the biggest goal for your career, or what's the biggest goal for your family, ideally, it should be a SMART goal, right? So it should be specific. You see at the bottom of this slide, what exactly are you trying to achieve? So what are you trying to achieve in your career? How will you know when you have achieved it? So can you measure it? Is it genuinely possible to achieve it? Is it attainable? If my goal is to become CEO of Rosewood, I mean, me personally, for some of you, yes, you could be CEO of Rosewood. For me, not so much, right? Is it relevant to my agency's goals or my organization's goals, right? And then when do I plan to achieve it? All right, so of course, again, this is familiar. SMART goals are familiar. Antonio, please go back to the slide I was just talking about. There we go. So again, how would you describe yourself? What's your biggest goal for your career? What's the biggest goal for your family? How are you trying to get there? So is the train going in the right direction? And that last question I asked was just more of a rhetorical question. Is it easy for you to think about these things? Do you do so every day? And the answer is probably no. I mean, for some people, maybe this is a habit that you have developed to really think about where you're going and what you're trying to accomplish. For many people, it's hard to have these thoughts. Right. I'll confess, I don't like to write stuff down. I don't like to plan, for my life, and think about where I'm going. But I do think about it every day. I do pray about it every day. But it's hard for me to articulate it. So let me pause for a second. Are there any of you that I want to share? Again, no pressure, but any of you want to talk about your answers to any of these questions, or reflect on this, or reflect on the process? How's the process for you? So you can unmute, or you can put something in the chat.
Well,
No?
I feel like for me, I
Oh,
think, I know I always talk, but I can't handle the silence.
Thank you, Sherry.
I think the first one and the fourth one are easier for me to answer. Like I'm a mother. Like that's the first thing that popped in my mind. I'm a mom. It comes out in everything I do, even if I'm not, mothering my own parents or my kids. I just, I think I was born a mom. I swear they tell me that. But the other two, it's kind of like, I don't know sometimes, but how am I going to get there? I mean, that one's easy for me. I'm going to get wherever I'm going to go through prayer and God. So I can answer those two without even thinking about it, just like I know. And the rest, I'm like, it'll come. So it'll
Yeah.
all be good and it'll get there.
Yeah. I tend to have some of that same kind of it'll come, it'll get there. But I think that we can also strategize, and the two things are not incongruent with each other. I mean, it's not. It's. I think it's okay to be a person of faith, to be a person who is, trusting God along the way, but at the same time also strategizing and thinking about how you get where you want to go.
Well, I think that's true. I think that for myself, I mean, I've always focused on my kids' goals and helping them get to where they want to go. Even my husband's goals and things like that, and helping him with his. And now it's kind of like my time, and I can actually focus on mine. And it's like I like my job and I enjoy it, so I don't even think I don't know what's next. You know what I mean? And that's something I probably ought to be thinking about. And as far as the family, I mean, our family goal now at this point with the kids getting out the door is like, how do we get more time with them? You want them out the door, you don't want to move them back, but you want more family gatherings and more, like group togetherness type moments and things like that. So it is something to think about. And we used to. Now I will say we used to be really big about the Franklin. I mean, I was a diehard. I was a diehard calendar girl. Like it was my day timer. If I walked out the door without that, I'd go home for it. Like I would probably cry. I didn't care about a cell phone, but I wanted that calendar. Like it was harsh. But we had our goals in there. We had our 1-year goal, our 5-year goals, and like what are we going to do? Where do we expect to be? What house are we going to be in? What where's our career going to be? What are we? All of those things. And I think now that we've started accomplishing a lot of the goals that we had, it's time to reevaluate and make new ones. But you kind of get to that, you're like, oh, hey, I made it. I forgot, but I made it. So it's kind of nice to enjoy the moment for a little while too.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Well, I think Antonio somebody asked me about Christmas earlier, and my wife is planning this trip, and similar to something Sherry just said, we are going to Florida on Saturday just to kind of hang out. And it'll be the first time that all 6 of us have been on vacation together in 8 years. So, my wife was and I was kind of nonchalant about it, but she was just really, really committed to the idea that that all of us would get together, and that we need to do it, as Sherry said, need to do it more often. So thank you for sharing that. I think there was one comment in the chat. It says, typically my career goal would help with the family goal until I realized my family goal is bigger than I actually thought. That's deep. And yeah, a lot of it, the whole people talk about work-family conflict or, work-life balance and all of that. And it's just the constant struggle to try to put things in the proper place. And that's part of what this whole conversation is about. So what are we, what are we doing with our time? How are we budgeting and planning our time? And is it getting us to where we want to be? Anybody else want to weigh in on this?
Dr. Fubara, this is Stacy. I think what I like most about this exercise is your last 2 questions about, do you think about these things and do you do it every day? Because we've talked a lot about, kind of self-awareness and self-reflection.
This morning, yes, I had them. And then I'm like,
Meredith, you got to mute yourself. There we go. Sorry, Stacy.
And I think as we talk about time management, and you talk about the 24 boxcars, and we don't get more time. And I think this being intentional about what is the goal, what is for my career, for my family, and do you think about them on whatever cadence or frequency? Because it could be, if you don't, it could be years, months have passed and something has changed within your life or your world that you do need to change what your goal is. Otherwise, you are just wasting that time. And so I think what I like most about this exercise is the last two questions, because being intentional about it is being responsible with your time and making sure that we're not just taking it for granted.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'll add to that to say it's hard, right? So please don't, I mean, I hope nobody feels a sense of guilt or shame if you can't seem to get it right, because it's hard. And you know, as Stacy mentioned, stuff can just kind of, we get in a pattern, we get in a habit, we get we're under time pressure from whatever it is that we're doing, work, kids, you know, school, and it's hard to sort of come up for air and think about where we're going. And you know, it's hard to do it all. And so sometimes we feel guilty because, you know, we didn't spend enough time with the kids, or didn't spend enough time with the spouse or with the parents, or, you know, so please don't feel guilt or shame. It's hard to find the right balance. But again, thinking about it regularly and being intentional is helpful. So thanks, Stacy. Let's go on, Antonio. So again, this is also a Brian Tracy recommendation. He says make written plans. So there's some studies that suggest that every minute spent in planning saves 10 minutes in execution. So planning ahead of time is just invaluable. I'm sure that's somewhat obvious. Think about what needs to be done first. Think about what's most important. I think Scott, a couple of months ago, talked about the matrix of urgency versus importance. I actually have a picture of that in here somewhere. Part of the planning should be anticipating where the obstacles might pop up. So anticipating what could go wrong, you know, asking other people, you know, my boss does a good job of this, asking, you know, so, you know, I've got this idea, I've got this plan. What might go wrong with it? What potential obstacles do you see? What additional knowledge, skills, or information do I need? So part of our planning process should be thinking about our own preparation. And finally, who are the people and groups you need help from? And you could even narrow that down to who is the most important person. So again, as part of our planning process, we only have so much time in the day. One question we might ask is, who's the most important person I need to talk to about this plan, or who can give me the best advice on this plan? And you know, focusing our attention and energy on that person. Let's go on, please. So Brian Tracy also talks about charting your projects. So keeping track of where you are, basically using to-do lists, right? And most of us have a habit of doing some kind of to-do list. Sherry mentioned the Franklin planner. You use the actual Franklin planner, Sherry? I didn't think you were old enough for
I
Franklin
don't know,
planner.
but my mom had one, and
Oh,
she lived by it. Like, she probably taught me how to use and how to utilize it to the best advantage. Like, because they had tabs on there, like, you know, for your personal area, you could write your
right.
bills and when they were due, and you know, and work. And it had like the monthly plan, and then it had the daily one, and you broke it down, and you knew where your interviews were and who was scheduled for what meeting. And like, she really embraced hers and like carried it over to me embracing it too. And as I got older and started doing like sales and things like that with my career, I realized how important it was to kind of just have even a general map of your day of what you've got to do, you know, whether it's like customer service calls or sales calls or, you know, what, and the value of even making time for lunch, how important that is. I mean, I know it sounds
Yeah.
kind of silly and everyone's laughing, but it was important to make sure you create these times and spaces so that way you didn't overwhelm yourself with too much of one task and breaking it down. Like, my mom really utilized hers. She's actually listening to me, so you know I'm getting extra brownie points for this too. But She really
Hi,
did. She taught
Mom.
me the art of how to do all of this. And and then as my children grew older and I got more kids and they all had different practices and stuff, and the internet came around and Google came out with their Google Calendar. Like, we had the family calendar, we had mine, and if it didn't make it on my calendar, it wasn't happening. Like, the kids knew, if
Right.
you did not email me into a calendar loop, it was not happening. Don't even think about it. Like, too late. And I still carried around the day timer for everything else, and there was one on the fridge that said what we were doing this week, and so I managed like 3 calendars just to make myself feel comfortable and not. I learned it helped control anxiety for me. It really did. Like, I really embraced it to the point that if I was organized, then I didn't feel unsettled, I didn't feel disorganized. I felt like I could maintain everything, and have people go, "Oh, you carry a lot." I'm like, "Do I?" Because I don't know it, because I just learned how to do and adapt to all of it by staying so almost military like organization. Like, it was very much like boom, 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 this is what we're doing. We are not ever late. We were 15 minutes early to everything, so we were on time. Let's go. And it just became a part of my life, and I liked it. So I still kind of do that to a point.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry.
I mentioned earlier that one of the benefits, one of the most well-documented benefits of time management is a sense of that sort of personal fulfillment, or not even fulfillment, a sense of personal wellness, really. And you mentioned the fact that it reduced anxiety and stress. So thank you. So this is a simple idea, but having a to-do list every day, and looking at it the night before. I can't tell you how many times I have forgotten about an appointment, I'll confess, or forgotten I had something to do, and just by reviewing the calendar the night before meant that I didn't get up the next day and miss an appointment or forget I had something to do. So again, it's a simple idea, but I think it's a powerful idea, is to plan every day the night before, or many people on a Friday afternoon will plan for the whole week. I think you could do both. So Friday afternoon, think about what's coming up for the next week. Friday afternoon, you're probably not working that hard anyway. So it's a good time to sit back and reflect, and to prioritize, as it says here. And some of you may have heard of this ABCDE method. Can you go to the next slide, Antonio? The next one. So here's the ABCDE network and our method, excuse me. And Scott talked about some of these when he did the presentation on delegation. So again, you could categorize your to-do list in terms of the things that you must do, things that you should do, things you don't need to do. So, you might do them, you might not do them, those are really optional things. Things that you can delegate. So they're important, but not important for you. And things that you can eliminate, things that you should not do. So I can't remember who talked about this idea of having a to-do list and also having a not-do list, things that I'm not going to do anymore, because it's easy for people to put stuff on your to-do list if they are not on your not-do list. So the things that you absolutely will not do, and be prepared to say no to, when people have these things they want to add to your list that really are really on your priority list. Next slide, Antonio, I think is the that matrix. Oh, sorry. So connected to the I forgot about this piece. So this is some material that I read in preparation for this. So there's a rule. We've all heard of the 80-20 rule for in a variety of different areas, right? So here on campus, 20% of our students take up 80% of our time. You've heard of the 80-20 rule in different places, the Pareto principle. In time management, there's a researchers suggest that 20% of our time results in 80% of the value that we bring to the organization. And Peter Drucker pushed it a step further and said that it's a 10-90 rule. So he said 10% of our time results in 90% of our value to the organization. which, you could quibble with this, and the numbers are probably inexact and will differ from person to person. But the underlying idea is that we can get a lot done in a short period of time, and that the most important aspects of our work and the most important things we do for our organization don't take all day. And so we can focus some attention on those things first, that 20% of time that's necessary to accomplish the big picture. So basically, these are the must-do items, items that are important and urgent, or these are the things that we want to again really prioritize, and to put some careful thought into what are the things that are going to result in the most value for me, for the organization, for the family, whatever it is that you are working on. A variation of this is the law of three. So the law of three is that there are three things that you do that are worth about 90% of your value to the organization. And, which suggests that there are lots of other things that we do that are just not as important. Some of them are things we have to do anyway, but the point is, again, for us to be intentional about how we use our time. Let's go to the next slide, please. I think, so we've talked about this one before. Scott showed this, used this in the delegation presentation a couple months ago. And so again, our priority ought to be quadrant one, things that are important and urgent. So things that are important but not urgent, we can plan. So we can schedule these things. We can lay out when we're going to do them. Things that are important or not important but urgent, we can delegate to someone else. So these are things that are, there's a deadline, there's time pressure, but it's not something that we need to do ourselves. And then lastly, things that are not important and not urgent shouldn't be done at all. So that's your E on the priority list. Let's go to the next slide, please. Checking the time here. So here's a question to reflect on. What is the most valuable use of my time right now? So this is a question we could ask all day, right? Multiple times a day. Maybe it should be on the wall in front of us, or on a sticky note attached to your computer screen. What's the most important use of my time, or most valuable use, of my time right now? As a way to get us to kind of reset. The subtext there says stay on track. And I'll confess again that it's something that is a big challenge for me to keep on track. So, I need to remind myself of this question multiple times a day. And go to the next slide, please. Particularly when it comes to this thing right here. I preached a sermon, I think it was earlier this year, where I called this the temptation machine. That the smartphone is revolutionary in terms of its value to us, but also revolutionary in terms of its ability to distract us. So, I'll confess again that, when I ask myself that question, what's most important, what's the most valuable thing for me to do right now? It's probably because, my phone has distracted me. And so I need to, kind of continually remind myself to put it down. And, we were talking about this here in one of our faculty meetings about how these things are really designed to keep us hooked, to keep us scrolling from one thing to another, the colors and the pictures and the sound and the movement, even the feel of the phone. It just has this kind of dopamine hit to make you feel good every time you pick it up. And generally the stuff that you're looking at on your phone is more fun than your job. So I have a question for y'all. What strategy do you use? And you can unmute or you can put this in the chat. How do you reduce the distraction from your phone? Or maybe you're just, really focused and it doesn't bother you. So maybe it's a two-part question. We should have had a poll. Does your phone distract you? And how do you
My
not let
phone
it
does
distract
distract me. But I've implemented at home with the kids, like there's no device, there's no laptop, tablet, phone while we're eating. We can turn on the TV, but we don't have any other devices on the table while we're dining. And then I have disconnected from Facebook and Instagram. I'm pretty much just on LinkedIn, which sometimes I have to curb that too. But that's what I do to keep from being distracted. And sometimes you have to mute the text conversations because we have family group chats, so have to turn those off sometimes.
Yeah, thank you. So quiet periods, remove some things. I also took, I still have an Instagram and TikTok accounts, but I took them off my phone. Although confession, I put them back on my phone recently because my son released a song on TikTok, which is another long story, but I probably will take them off again because when they're that accessible, they just get in the way. So let's see. Have my phone on do not disturb with some exceptions, turn the notifications off, put it in my office drawer. That's a nice idea. Put it on do not disturb, leave my phone on do not disturb, turn the notifications off, focus mode, or put it in the drawer. Turn my phone on do not disturb while at work. Thank you. You all are more disciplined than I am. Wait. It's a good point. We're actually going to talk about that one in a minute, the wait part. And I do like the idea. I don't know who that was speaking that said they don't let the kids have their phones during dinner. So, in other words, have some time where, no phones allowed. My wife had my son in the car with her hostage one day and made him put the phone down so he would talk to her through the whole ride. And he was miserable, but she forced him to do it. Try to segment work content during work hours, personal content on my own time hours. Nice. So basically time management, scheduling, planning. Wait until lunch after work to answer messages. Good. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's so easy for our phones to be intrusive on our time. And as I said, they're designed that way. There are apps out there that will block you from using certain apps for a period of time. You said mostly to prevent it from getting stuck in a social media scroll hole. I've never heard that term before. Scroll hole. I heard, I can't remember who it was who said that he had his assistant change the password on his social media every Monday and refused to tell him what the passwords were until Friday. So every week he got a new password for his social media. So he just could not check it until Friday. Extreme, but effective. So thank you. All right, let's keep going. Thank you for that. Antonio, let's go to the next slide, please. So I don't know if you guys can comment on this. This might be sensitive, but I'll ask it anyway. So for those of you who are supervisors, how do you encourage or reward time management for your team members? The reason I ask this question is because, in some jobs, if you work more efficiently, you just get more work. So, and that may or may not be a great reward for being more efficient. So are there any supervisors, I know I put you all on the spot here, but are any supervisors or managers who can comment on this? If not, at least I want you to think about it, right? So is the reward for being more productive, is it more work? And is that what you really want to do? Or are there ways that you can incentivize people for being productive? Any comments on this? Or even if you're not a supervisor, maybe you have an idea on this one. You know, are there ways that your supervisor can encourage you to be more productive? So, you know, we finish the project early and we get a day off. That you know, that might be sacrosanct. So forgive me if it is, but you know, that might be a way to encourage time management, to give people back some of that time, some kind of reward, some kind of award. Somebody put in the chat, verbal encouragement, praise, usually immediately effective. Absolutely. Which is underrated, really. I mean, social recognition is a powerful tool. And feedback and encouragement, as it says, verbal encouragement is a powerful tool. So I don't want to minimize the importance of that. Thank you. So we're getting short on time. I'm gonna keep going, but this, oh, sorry, somebody gonna say something?
Yeah, I'll jump off mute for a second. So this is Houston. One thing that I think Rosewood does that really speaks to this that I haven't seen at any of my other companies is really the WLE program that we have, where we provide unlimited WLE to any of our employees, because inherently that shows that we trust everybody, you know, leaders, individual contributors, everybody, managers all the way down the line, to manage their time so that while they're on WLE, they have coverage and that the business keeps rolling, so that we can obviously provide for everybody that's a part of the family and part of the business. And so I think that it's something that kind of, I think we're all used to now, because it's been in place for a couple of years, but it's something that just has that explicit impact where, hey, anybody can take time when they need it, because we know that we're going to have the coverage and the job's still going to get done. And those tasks that drive us all forward and make us all better and provide for each of us individually will continue to have that positive impact, because we know that people are going to do what they need to do and get the coverage they need while they're on vacation.
Thank you. And what does WLE stand for?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
What does WLE stand for?
Work-life empowerment. It's pretty much PTO. So just our
Okay.
PTO program. So we have unlimited PTO.
Oh, nice. Nice. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. All right, let's keep going. Thank you, Houston. So I want to take about maybe 5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. So there are tons of ideas for how to manage time, right? There's software, there's apps, there are tools. We were talking earlier about the Franklin Planner. So give me a few, maybe in the chat. Why don't you put them in the chat real quick? What are some of your favorite things? So these could be tools, these could be techniques. So one of mine is to do stuff that I don't like first. So, you know, it's easy to postpone tasks that I don't like. So one of the things that I'll do, you know, when I'm being productive, is to do my least favorite things first and get them out of the way, because otherwise I'll procrastinate on them. So give me some more. What are some of your tools, techniques, or hacks for managing time? And I have a list here, but I want to hear from you first, because everybody has their own little techniques. So block my calendar for certain tasks. Thank you. Sherry mentioned earlier, including lunch. So scheduling lunch. Eat the biggest frog first. That's it. Frogs are not very tasty. but eat the big one first. Complete a task fully before moving on to another task. Thank you. Absolutely. Take time at each end of each day to plan the next day. Same with the end of the week. Start the day with fun tasks. So that's the opposite of what I said. End the day with enjoyable tasks. Start off strong and end strong. Okay. So it's kind of a task sandwich. Do fun things at the beginning and the end of the day. Bullet journaling has helped me organize my day. Thank you. You must not have had frog legs prepared correctly. It's been a long time since I've had frog legs. Have a good idea of what done and good looks like. Thank you. Any more? All right, Antonio. Oh, sorry, somebody else just posted one. What was that one? I was going to say writing down your task so that it's at the forefront. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, writing things down may seem like a really simple idea. It actually is a really simple idea, but people sometimes ignore it or neglect it. You know, and you get such a nice feeling when you check off the items on the to-do list. One of my electronic ones, I have an electronic to-do list where when you click it, it automatically, when you check it off, it'll erase it slowly from the screen. Like, oh, what a nice feeling to watch it erase. There's a tool, toggle.com, that is very easy to track time spent on tasks. Thank you. To-do list and assign priorities, setting deadlines. Big 3 works well for me. Yeah. I have some, you know, I have some daily things, some immediate, like I wrote this note to myself the other day because there's something I had to do yesterday. So, and yet, you know, it's kind of quiet around here because school's out. So this was the one thing I really had to do yesterday. So I didn't have a big 3, I had a big 1. Toggle is amazing. I've got to try that. Time blocking and to-do lists. We'll talk more about that one. So actually, let's go to the list, Antonio. So some of these you guys have already mentioned. So single handling, complete important tasks in one sitting. Handle papers or tasks just once. One of my professors way back in the 20th century, if you gave him something to sign or a form to fill out, he would do it right on the spot. So he would handle that piece of paper once. He'd fill it out, give it right back to you. Instead of what often we do is take it, put it down, and then we have to pick it up later on. And those interruptions or switching between tasks actually slow you down. So set aside uninterrupted work time. You know, some people come to the office early, some people stay late, some people work on the weekends, just so you have time with no interruptions. Manage the people who interrupt you. So, you know, again, open door policies are good and have their place, but there's some people who are going to waste your time. So find ways to politely and humanely manage the people who are going to interrupt you. Avoid multitasking. People think they can do it, but they don't do it well. Nobody, you know, just the human brain doesn't work well to try to do 2 things at the same time. You know, like some of you are probably on your computer right now while I'm talking. So you're doing one thing or the other. You're either listening to me or you're doing your task, but you can't do both. Do similar do similar tasks, one right after the other. Somebody mentioned blocking or chunking. So do all your emails at the same time, or make all your phone calls at the same time, or write, you know, all of your invoices at the same time. Set aside time for emails and phone calls. I just referred to that. Keep going, Antonio. I got a few more. So read, but do so selectively. None of us have time to read all of the things that come across our desk. So reading is good. It's, you know, they used to say reading is fundamental, but you can't read everything. So figure out what you're going to read. Some people will tear pages out of the magazine and throw the rest of the magazine away. So they're only going to read the pages they tore out. Invest in self-improvement. So there are tools like speed reading, which I tried. I was not good at it. But if you can read faster, obviously that's going to save you time. Keep your workspace organized. I did that earlier in the week. Keep a digital calendar. Of course, most of us use some kind of digital tool. I use the Outlook calendar. So I have it on my computer, have it on my other computer, have it on my phone. It works well for me. And, you know, we talked about eating the big frog first, or as somebody said, eat the frog in the middle. Let's go on. I think I'm near the end. Yeah, so this is near the end. This is actually my last thing. So this may be a little, a bit of a sensitive piece, but I think it's valuable. So forgive me if it's unpleasant, but I think it's pleasant. So this is a personal reflection that I hope will be encouraging to you. So back in March, my father died. He had been sick for maybe 2 years, you know, kind of sick, not sick. He wasn't, you know, infirm. He wasn't bedridden or anything, but he was struggling a little bit. So he died in March of this year. And the upside, the positive side, especially when you think about time management, is my dad spent the last 40 years preaching. You know, he was a microbiologist. He had a PhD from University of Michigan, and you know, was a researcher, was a scholar, was athlete. He was a world-class athlete, which that totally skipped my generation. And he left academia to pursue preaching. And so he spent 40 years preaching. And so when you think about time management, think about the golden boxcars, think about what, you know, your values are, what's important to you. He made a radical choice. I mean, radical choice. We don't have time for me to tell you just how significant it was for him to leave academia and go into ministry full time. And, you know, we had a lot of lean days, a lot of the equivalent of ramen noodles. This is in Nigeria, so not ramen noodles, but the equivalent of eating ramen noodles because he chose to preach for 40 years. But it turned out that, you know, he really literally lived his best life. He was well honored. So when he died, the funeral was like a carnival almost. You know, we had the people with the casket on their shoulders and the matching outfits, and we fed like, you know, hundreds of people, literally fed hundreds of people. So, I mean, it was this big celebration. And so, you know, I think it's an example of somebody who used his time doing what he wanted to do and what he felt was most important to do. And, you know, there were some things that he didn't do, you know, that we complained about, but he was, you know, single-minded in terms of his determination to preach the gospel and to build a church and to minister to people in the church. So, you know, we miss him, you know, but he was 86. He lived a good life, and you know, used his time to really do what he felt was most important. And you can't get much more important than serving the Lord. So that was my dad. And then in May, my little brother died, and he was only 51. So that was a lot harder, you know, to say goodbye to him. But even there, you know, there were some time management lessons. You know, my brother was the life of the party. He was fun. He had lots of friends. His house was always full of people. You know, every time I went to visit, he lived in Providence, Rhode Island. Every time I went to visit, there were people coming in and out of the house. You know, he was self-employed, so he could control his own schedule. And so literally, like all day, you know, people would be coming in and out. He'd do business on the phone. He'd run to the bank. He had property, real estate, and property, and would but would again and just enjoy life, enjoy his friends. He and his wife traveled the world. China, Thailand, Malaysia, France, Holland, or the Netherlands. I mean, just all over the world. And he really loved his kids and really invested time and energy in his kids. And I used to actually kind of look at him with the side eye, like, you spend so much on these kids, forget those kids, But it was almost as if he knew that his time was short. And so he spent a lot of time investing in his kids. He built a business that his kids can take over. He and his wife work together, so she can keep running the business. So there's no, they don't have any financial issues to worry about. Even the fact that he outlived my dad was a blessing, because we didn't have to call an 86-year-old man and say, hey, your son is dead. And so I bring all of that up to say, a couple of things. I mean, one is, as we've already said, use your time doing what you love. Yes, be productive. Yes, be successful at work, but also put it all in perspective. What is really important to you? Look, if I can say something just blasphemous, you might need to quit your job, and go do something else. Go preach like my dad did for 40 years. Sorry, Chandler. So do what you love, do what's important, pursue your values, spend time with the people that you love, right? You think about all of the time that we spend in arguments or grudges or fights, it's just not worth it. So Christmas is coming up, you'll be around people, hot family members, maybe people that you don't like. You may just decide not to spend time with people that you don't like, or to use the time to patch up relationships and to heal broken relationships. Because in the end, I mean, that's really what's going to be important. Sherry was talking earlier about being a mom, and you could tell from her expression that was just really, really, really important to her. Yes, she got a job. Yes, career. Yes, self, development. But also, these relationships are critically important. So, speaking of relationships, I'm thankful for the relationship we have with Rosewood. Thank you. I think I have one more slide, Antonio. Thank you for this relationship, and for this year. I think it's been a good year with this Leadership Live. So thank you so much. I stole this from Laura Vanderkam. She says, focus on what matters, which is kind of a no-brainer. So it's a little after 11. So I got to stop. Thank you all again. I'm done.
For that insightful Leadership Live, Dr. Burrow, way to end it on a bang. And thank you, everybody, for joining the last one of the year. I can't wait to have some more next year. I see that Teams is going off, so thank you so much. Got a lot of good feedback, Dr. Burrow. And the new list should be announced in the beginning, towards the end of the year. So keep an eye out for that. And like I said, if you missed any this year, just reach out to marketing. We have them all on YouTube. We were able to share them, and this one will be out. And then find out who completed all 12 sessions on our next monthly monthly newsletter going out next Friday. So thank you, everybody. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year's. Stay safe.
Merry Christmas, y'all.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Bye.
Thank you.